Hello, students. Today's topic is going to be exploring careers working with young children. Since all of you have chosen to take this class in early childhood education at KEC, my uh, understanding is that you may be interested in working with children after high school. So I want to talk about some different careers in working with young children. First of all, I'm going to share a little bit about where I come from. What is my story in working with young children? So I was just like you guys back in high school. I did a lot of babysitting. Had a little boy that lived next door, and his mom had a beauty shop in the basement. So I went over to their house and I took care of Russell as his mom worked in the basement. So by doing that, I learned a little bit about working with kids and learned that it was something that I enjoyed, something that I was pretty good at. So fast forward from there, I um, finished high school. I went to college. I went down to the University of Illinois in Champaign. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I enjoyed learning about people, learning about behavior, learning about how people learned. So I majored in psychology with an emphasis in child and adolescent psychology. So really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I enjoyed children. I was also part of a youth group growing up and was very interested in that. So I was either going to work with young children or work in youth ministry. So fast forward from that, I finished my college degree and went back to live at my mom's house in Rockford. And there was a job ad in the newspaper for a preschool teacher. And I thought, I got to figure out something to do. So I thought I would give that a try. So I worked at a small preschool named Living and Learning Preschool in Rockford, as I mentioned, and I was assigned to be the 2-year-old teacher. So I had a classroom of 8 2-year-olds and just me, no co-teacher, nothing like that. So I learned to teach 2-year-olds and really enjoyed helping them to learn, really enjoyed forming relationship with them, really enjoyed supporting them, enjoyed helping them fall in love with learning. So that was a really neat experience for me. So I did that for a couple years. After that, I thought, I'm going to do something different. So I was a bank teller. I was a bank teller for exactly 1 week. Did not like being a bank teller, but I wanted to work with children. So I was drawn back to working with children. A position became available at the church that I attended as a preschool teacher in the daycare there on the church's campus. So I did that. That was a really neat experience as well. I enjoyed working there. One of the cool things about working there was that we had a very large classroom, and then attached to the classroom was a courtyard. So the children really got to choose if they wanted to be inside or outside. We always had to make sure we had teaching staff inside and teaching staff outside. Outside was, as I say, a neat courtyard, had a little tree. The children could climb the tree, so that was a neat experience for them. So I worked there a couple years as well and really decided that early childhood education was the way that I wanted to go. So at that point, I moved to DeKalb so I could attend Northern Illinois University. There I earned my master's degree in early childhood education. So the focus was on early childhood education. A master's degree is something you earn after a bachelor's degree, so it took me a couple years to earn that. And while I was earning that, I worked at the child care center there on campus called Campus Child Care Center. I was called a child development supervisor, so I got to work with children, and I also got to supervise student employees who were other college students working on that worked at the child care center as their college job. Loved that, really enjoyed that. And then after being there a couple of years, right as I was about to finish my master's degree, a position became available at Kishwaukee College as the director of the Early Childhood Center. So I applied for that position and was hired. I worked there for 27 years, retiring from there pretty recently, a couple of years back. And that was a really neat job for me. In Illinois, if you work in a child care center that has less than 50 or less children, then you can also work in the classroom. If it's larger than that, then the director can't work in the classroom, but only do administrative things. So when I worked at the Early Childhood Center, I got to spend some time in the classroom. I get to spend some time in the office, doing just a real variety of things. So no 2 days were ever the same. So really enjoyed that as well. So I found a career working with young children, and I've worked with young children in many different capacities. After I left Northern, I went and worked for after I left Kishwaukee College, I went and worked for a resource and referral agency for a couple years, providing support services to early childhood teachers. And now I'm landing as a high school teacher, helping all of you students learn about early childhood education. So just wanted to share with you my story in case you're wondering where this Mr. Kimmel came from. Now we're going to talk a little bit about your story. You're all creating a story. Every decision you make, everything you do becomes part of your story. So I encourage you to write a good one. Now we're going to talk about some considerations in choosing a career. I really want to talk about finding a good fit or a good match for exactly who you are. We all wear pants, we all wear jeans or various kinds of pants, and it's always good to find a good pair of jeans, one that just fits you, you like, it's comfortable, and it's the same with choosing your career. You want to find something that fits who you are and you're comfortable in that career. So um, using that illustration, we're going to move on now and talk about choosing a career that fits well. The first thing I ask you to ask yourself is this career or is this job a good match for my skills, my abilities, my talents, and my gifts? So really thinking about yourself and thinking about the skills that you have, the things that you're good at, what your abilities are, what you're gifted at, and saying, is this job a good match for those things? A second question to ask yourself, is this job or is this career something that will bring me personal satisfaction? Working with young children brought me tons of personal satisfaction. One of the big goals that I had with working with children is to help them fall in love with school and learning. I was able to do that. I was able to help them to know that school was fun. School's a place you want to go. School's a place where you're going to form friendships. School's a place where you're going to be cared for by your teacher. So I was able to help kids, and that brought me tremendous personal satisfaction. Next question to ask of yourself, do I have the desire, the motivation, and the drive to complete the educational requirements for the position? So in a little bit, we're going to talk about different careers working with young children, and each of them have a different educational requirement, a different set of schooling requirements that you need to fulfill in order to work in that position. So ask yourself, do I want to go on to college? How much college do I want to go on to? Or am I finished with school as I end high school? Want to take a break from school and simply work. So ask yourself that question about what you want to do education-wise after you leave high school. Another question, not a real glamorous one, but an important one, is will the compensation of this position allow me to live the life I desire? As somebody working with young children, as a teacher, as a director, I never earned tons of money, but I didn't really need to earn lots of money. I've been able to work along with my wife. We have a home. We're able to take care of our children. I don't need enough money to have a jet boat. I don't need enough money to be able to have my own helicopter. So really looking at the compensation of the position and is it going to allow you to live the life that you desire? I'm also kind of considering what have I liked or disliked about high school classes and jobs? Are there any classes that have been, wow, I love this topic, I love this subject, this is what I want to do? Have you had any jobs where you say, I really enjoy this job or I really don't enjoy this job? So, what do you enjoy? What do you like? What do you dislike about high school classes and about any jobs that you've had? Another important question, but not real glamorous, is the position in demand? Will I be able to find work in this position when I'm ready to begin working? So, kind of look at that and say, is this something where I'm going to be able to get a job after I finish my education? So now that we've looked at that, looked at trying to find a good fit, we're going to review selected roles working with young children. Early childhood, which this class focuses on, is typically considered from birth through age 8, which is called the early childhood period. So the classes that we're going to look at, I'm sorry, the positions we're going to look at really focus on positions that work in the early childhood period from birth through age 8. So the first one I want to talk about are childcare center roles. I've worked at childcare centers most all of my life, so this is what I know best, and this is what I'm going to share with you first. The first position is called an assistant teacher. You can work in a licensed or license exempt childcare center alongside a head teacher. In this assistant teacher role, you're going to be actively working with children, helping to plan and carry out and provide learning experiences for the children in your care. In Illinois, assistant teachers are required to have a high school diploma or GED. No college coursework is required to be an assistant teacher in a childcare center. You are, however, required to meet several DCFS, which stands for the Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS requirements, including background checks, a physical showing that you're physically healthy to work with young children. You're going to have some continue education requirements where you have to take about 15 hours of training every year and more just to meet the DCFS requirements. At this point, I want to just go off path a little bit and talk about background checks. So everybody that I ever hired at the Early Childhood Center, as well as any students that came over to observe children, they had to complete a background check. So they went and had their fingerprints taken, and then a business did a background check on them to see if they had any criminal history. I've had a few come back that did have criminal history. I remember one young man I had that was looking for a job, and he had some drug offenses in his past. He explained these to me. He was very remorseful. He said he made some dumb decisions when he was younger, but unfortunately, these things were part of his background, and they were called a ban. So I was not able to hire him even if I wanted to because of the nature of those offenses. I had another person I remember who was a parent of a couple young children. She went to 7-Eleven one time, ran into 7-Eleven while she was in there. She left her kids in the car, probably because they were sleeping, but somebody called the police and she was arrested for this. This one came back as a child endangerment, and this was one that wasn't an automatic ban, but I was able to talk with her and learn about it and learn if she had remorse for that, if she had made changes. So I was able to speak with her. Since she was going to be a student teacher at our center, she was always going to be under the supervision of one of our staff members. So I felt okay having her work there. But I also talked with her and said, if I were hiring you, I probably wouldn't, because the judgment that you showed with your own children might not be the judgment I would want you to have with the children that I'm responsible for. Um, so I tell you these couple stories because I want you to be sure and live a life where you would have a good background check when a background check needs to take place for a job that you want to do. Okay, off of that one. So to be an assistant teacher, the pros, easy entry after high school without a college education. So if you're kind of tired of school and you want to be finished, you could easily get a job as an assistant teacher. It's rewarding work when that's a good match for who you are. So very rewarding working with kids. The cons of this, it's going to be the lowest paying position in a child care center. Another con is by DCFS standards, you cannot be alone with children. So employers may look for lead teachers who can be alone with children, so they might pass over you in favor of somebody who has more education and can be left alone with a group of children. Next position is lead teacher or head teacher. So these are the people that work in a classroom as a supervising teacher. They work with children, they plan activities, they carry out learning experiences, they form relationships, they do all those things that a classroom teacher does. They have additional responsibilities as well. They may be writing newsletters that go in the newsletter. They're going to be planning the curriculum, the objectives, the learning objectives for kids. They're going to be holding parent-teacher conferences where you meet regularly with parents to talk about how a child is doing in your classroom. They're going to be assessing the children's learning and much more. So it's a bit of a busier job than that of the assistant teacher. In Illinois, lead teachers are required to have 2 years of college, which is about 60 credit hours, with at least 6 credit hours, which typically equates to 2 classes in early childhood education or child development. So you have to have 2 years of college. Hopefully you get a degree after those 2 years, and then 2 classes in early childhood or child development. Many employers are going to prefer that you have an associate's degree, which is the degree that you can earn after 2 years of college. They may also require you to have a bachelor's degree, so depends on where the job is, but in Illinois the minimum is to have 2 years of college. You're required to meet the same DCFS requirements that I spoke with for the assistant teacher position. The pros of this position is you are allowed by DCFS to be alone with a group of children. So being alone with a group of children is not really the best thing. You really want to have co-teachers there with you. But if worse came to worse and you had 4 children left at the end of the day, you could be alone with those 4 children without needing another teacher to be with you. Another pro is it's rewarding work if this is something that you're really called to do. The cons, the pay may be a struggle as it has historically been low for people working in childcare centers. Benefits may be limited. Benefits are typically better when you're working for a larger organization, such as a college or university or with a chain of childcare centers. So do know that pay and benefits have historically been a struggle. I think things are getting a little bit better as we hopefully exit COVID, but historically that has been a challenge. Next position I want to talk about in the child care center is that of the child care center director. The director supervises teachers working within a child care center. As I mentioned earlier, in centers with 50 or fewer children, the director may also teach with children in the classroom. Additional responsibilities of the director are things like creating budgets, hiring and supervising staff, leading program improvements, completing paperwork for the state, advertising to promote the center, managing the physical plant, the classrooms, etc., and much, much more. I greatly enjoyed being a director. As I said, I did that for 27 years because I liked the variety. I also love math, so creating budgets was right down my alley. I love to write as well, so writing grants to try to get funding for our program was something I enjoyed doing. In Illinois, directors are required to have 2 years of college, which is 60 credit hours, with at least 18 hours in early childhood education or child development. So 18 hours typically is 6 classes. So whereas the head teacher had to have 2 classes, the director needs to know more about working with children, so 6 classes is required. An associate's degree or bachelor's degree are typically required, and some employers seek someone with a master's degree based on their setting. So as I worked in a community college, it was important to the college that I have a master's degree because the college is all about education. You're required to meet DCFS and requirements, just as with other positions. The pros of this position, the director serves as the gatekeeper to quality. Picture a real fancy house that has a gate out in front of it. That gate is designed to keep bad stuff out from that property. And the gatekeeper to quality is kind of the same way, where I'm responsible for hiring teachers, so I needed to hire teachers of good quality. I'm responsible for the learning environment, so I need to make sure and purchase equipment that is going to support a good learning environment. I'm responsible for the curriculum, so I'm going to make sure that we have a good quality curriculum that helps kids learn in ways that come naturally to children. So a pro is the director is really that gatekeeper to quality, and if you really want to have good stuff for children, that's a neat position to be in. Another pro is that the director's pay is typically the best pay that you can get while working in a child care center. The cons, the benefits may be limited. Typically, you get better pay when you're working as part of a larger organization, such as a college or a university, or in a chain of childcare centers. Another con is there's lots of work to do to operate a successful center. This was actually a pro for me because I liked doing a lot of work to really help that center to succeed and build a good, strong reputation. Other roles that you might see in childcare centers might be an assistant director. If the program is large enough, you might have an assistant director to share some of those director responsibilities. You might also have a curriculum director, who is somebody who works directly with the teachers, helping to make sure that you're providing a good, sound, developmentally appropriate curriculum for children. You might have a master teacher. A master teacher is an experienced teacher who shows good skill in working with children, and the master teacher may help train other teachers to help them to become their best. You may also have a cook in the center because we need to provide meals and snacks for children, as well as a bus driver if the center you're working at transports children to and from an elementary school. So that kind of concludes the child care center roles. Next, I want to look at family child care roles. So instead of working in a center outside of your home, you may want to work in a family child care home or a family child care group home. I know this well because my wife has a family child care home. She has had it for a long time. My son, who is almost 21, we started the family child care home primarily so my wife could stay home and be with him when he was young, and also have a job helping kids learn in a child care environment. So it's a wonderful job for somebody if they want to be with their own children as they grow up, and also want a job helping other young children to grow and to learn. In Illinois, family child care providers are required to have a high school diploma or a GED. No college coursework is required. However, the more college you have, typically the more you know about working with children and the better you're going to be at doing that job. They're also required to meet DCFS requirements, including the background check and other things like that. The pros of this position are you get to be your own boss. You get to have your own small business right there in your home. When it's icky weather outside, you don't have to leave your home, but you get to work from your home, earning money while also caring for your own children. The cons also might be being your own boss because you're going to have to do everything that a boss would do. You also have limited contact with other adults. You see parents when they drop off and when they pick up, but you're working by yourself, so you don't get to have connections with other teachers as you would in a school setting. You also have long hours, and you may also lack benefits such as sick days, vacation days, etc. In my wife's example, she actually has sick days and vacation days built into her contract with parents. So if she is sick, she gets to be sick and still gets to get paid for that day. Now I want to talk about elementary school roles, and a lot of you have already expressed that this is where you see yourself landing to work in an elementary school. So teacher is the primary position. You would work in a public or private elementary school, and the grades in early childhood are typically pre-K, before kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or third grade. That's generally in that birth to age 8 group. You're going to actively work with children, helping to plan and carry out learning experiences. In Illinois, more education is required to be a teacher than to work in a childcare setting. Teacher certification requires that you have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and to recall, a bachelor's degree is typically a 4 or a 5-year training for you. Different certifications are available, including the early childhood certification, which is called an O4, that qualifies you to work with children from birth through grade 3, an elementary certification, which qualifies you for kindergarten through 9th grade, a secondary certification, which is grades 6 through 12. Special education could be in a specific subject or allow you to work for kindergarten through grade 12, and the special education special certificate, which allows you to work with preschool through age 21. So the pros of working in an elementary school: it's rewarding work, again, when it's a good match for who you are. And public and private schools are usually able to pay better and offer better benefits than childcare settings. Another pro is that you might be working a 9-month school year. Some teachers work a 9-month school year. Some also teach summer school as well. The cons of this: maybe the class sizes may be larger than in childcare centers. In childcare centers, really 20 is the maximum that you would have in a classroom with 3, 4, or 5-year-olds, versus it might be a larger classroom in an elementary school. Another position I wanted to talk about was somebody working in a healthcare setting. So this one is a child life specialist. So children that are in the hospital need somebody there to help care for them other than doctors and nurses. So child life specialist works with children, helping them cope with the anxieties, the fears, the things that happen in a hospital setting. So they're going to actively work with children, helping to plan and carry out experiences to help children in that setting. Not in this video recording on YouTube, but if you look at the Google Slides that I provided for you, this is a clickable link that takes you to a website to learn more about the position of a child life specialist. If this has any interest to you, I would really encourage you to check out that website. Other roles that you might have working with children and families and teachers would be as a child care resource and referral agency. So this is where I worked immediately before coming to KEC, and I supervised all of these different roles. You have training specialist. A training specialist helps to offer various in-service training opportunities to child care providers so they can learn more about working with children. Also have a referral specialist whose job is to help families to find childcare that best meets the needs of their family. It was always important to us that families know what quality childcare looks like so that they can choose wisely. We also had quality specialists who help childcare teachers to provide good learning environments and good learning experiences for young children. We also had an infant toddler specialist who worked with childcare providers who had infants and toddlers to help them to provide good environments for the kids that they care for. We also employed some family specialists. These are people who work with parents to help them learn the skills necessary to be a good parent, to provide good care and education for their children. We also employed eligibility specialists who worked with parents or guardians who were looking to have their child in childcare but wanted some assistance in paying for that. Also, if you're interested in learning more about the Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies, you can click the link that is provided in the Google Slides document. Other professional roles that may be of interest to you are speech and language pathologist or therapist. So oftentimes children need some help learning how to speak, and so speech and language pathologists would help with that. There are also physical therapists who can help children with the development of their physical body, their fine muscle skills, their large muscle skills, their coordination. School psychologist is another position. They can help children who are experiencing challenges in learning. So they can work in that way. A school counselor, you all are school counselors, and you know that they help students select classes and help students who are also having challenges with learning, and many more other professional roles that you may want to consider. If you say, I'm taking this class, but I'm not really interested in working with children, I would encourage you to do a few different things to consider ideas for your future. First one is you can meet with your high school counselor. They can do what's called aptitude testing, where they do some kind of questionnaires with you to figure out what you might be good at, and then they can help you find some jobs where you could use those skills that you have. Another suggestion would be to shadow someone who currently does what you're thinking about doing. So if you know somebody who does whatever occupation you're considering, say, can I go along with you for a day and watch what you do and see if that's something I'm interested in? You may want to do an internship in the role to learn more about it. So in this class, we have some students who are doing an internship. They're working in an early learning environment, working alongside teachers, working with children to see if that's something they want to do. I also found a useful website that you can also find through the Google Slides called an occupation finder. And when you go to that, it's going to list 790 occupations, and you can filter saying how much education you have, what jobs are projected to be available in the future, what the pay is like. So I encourage you to check out that occupation finder. I actually have a slide of that pictured here. And as you look down here, it's showing 1 to 25 of the 790 entries. So if you're interested in working, but you're not sure what, I would encourage you to check that out. At this point in the live class, we had an opportunity for questions and conversations that we can't do through this video. So if I may be of any service to you, helping you understand the role of working with children or other jobs, please be sure to see me. Thank you.